Hey folks, welcome. So this is the start of something new. I created a programming language in a bar as a joke about probably nearly 5-6 years ago now. And once in a while there's a little spike of interest. There's a bunch of people find Rockstar who haven't found it before and like it, and they get excited about it, and they start using it to do things. And every time this happens, it sort of becomes painfully apparent that there's a bunch of things that I kind of, I'm going to say I got wrong. There's stuff in the language that it should have supported, or it would be nice if it supported. There's some stuff in the language that, features that people have asked for, not being able to include functions from other files. Basically, there's a wish list. There's a long list of things that people have gone, hey, it would be awesome if it did all this. And there's a bunch of implementations out there. But the other sort of big thing that has changed since I built the JavaScript implementation of Rockstar, which is called Satriani. That's the one that runs over at codewithrockstar.com. So if you go to let me switch this on and bring that up, and there is codewithrockstar.com. And if you go to codewithrockstar.com right now, there is an online interpreter. And you can type in Rockstar programs, and you can click Rock, and it runs them, and it tells you what the output is. And it's built in JavaScript. It's called Satriani because JS is kind of, Joe Satriani is, that's what JS is in rock and roll parlance. You see JS written on a guitar, it's probably a Joe Satriani signature. And but the other thing that's changed, Blazor. So Blazor is the .NET runtime that targets WebAssembly. So hello, Surly Dev, welcome to the stream. And Blazor is kind of very good. Blazor is like good enough now. Blazor is good enough that it's genuinely feasible to use C# to write components that you then ship to the web and they run in other people's browsers. One of the things that there's an old maxim, never ever build anything that'll bankrupt you if it's successful. And something I was acutely aware of with early versions of Rockstar was I don't want to run a server that is responsible for running other people's programs. Because when we do get these little spikes in popularity, like a couple of years ago, Carnegie Mellon did a Rockstar round in the Capture the Flag game they have for their computer science undergraduates. And suddenly, there are hundreds of people asking for help and talking about it and that kind of thing. And you don't want those spikes to cost you money. So I was always, sort of very adamant that Tommy used to work on the docs. That right there, that is the codewithrockstar.com ethos in a nutshell. Is can we make a programming language that is absolutely packed with daft, references and rock and roll jokes and all of those kinds of things. Finally, biting the Blazor bullet. So the main thing that sort of tipped it is I've been doing a bunch of stuff with Blazor and also Razor Components, which is kind of like a Blazor, but sort of the state of the art with .NET now is you can build a component and then decide later, do you want to run it on the client's browser, or do you want to run it on the server with static rendering, or do you want to run it on the server with WebSocket dynamic rendering, which is just awesome, and it's not quite there yet, but it's like 95% of the way there. And I think that's kind of really exciting. I think that's very cool. And so what we're going to be doing today is the first thing I'm going to be doing is moving some of these things. And there we go. Look at that. I'm not hiding behind the chat window anymore. What I want to do is it's a proof of concept. I am going to figure out how easily we can build so the plan here, let me bring up a Visual Studio Code window, and then I can start writing a text file. Because that's always a good way of making things happen, is to start off with a text file. So let me bring this thing up, and so this is literally me just making kind of notes for myself right now. So what do we want to do? Well, the two things that I want to be able to target, update now, no, later. We'll restart VS Code later. So one is I want a browser runtime. So this will be based on WASM. So this will run on WebAssembly. And two is I want to be able to build Rockstar.exe or the Mac OS. Actually, what we'll do, and so we'll call this or the Mac OS /Linux equivalent So this is basically going to be /user/bin/rockstar. So if you want to, you can just install a binary. And that's another thing that .NET will do now, is we have ahead of time compilation with what's called tree shaking. So it'll go through your program and it'll chop out any bits of the runtime that aren't used. So, .NET has now become a sort of development environment and toolchain and everything that I think does everything I need. Now, I've always loved JavaScript as a language, because I like browsers, and if you can run something in a browser, then the whole planet can come and play with it without having to download anything. And it looks like finally, it's time to see if WASM can live up to that, because I think it probably can. I think we're almost there. Now, so what I'm going to try and do today is there's going to be a project which is the Rockstar interpreter. Now for today, that's probably just going to return foo. Like, we're building the tiniest, simplest thing that you can possibly imagine. But I want to explore the hosting mechanism. How easily can I create a library that contains the interpreter and then turn that into a command line interpreter that you can just run, and into a web-based interpreter that runs on top of WebAssembly. So we're going to play around with that for an hour or so and see how far we get, and doubtless learn some stuff along the way which we did not anticipate. And if all that's good, then it's time to start thinking, how do we work on the next iteration of Rockstar? How do we incorporate features? How many changes are there going to be? How many breaking changes are there going to be? And serious, important work, as you can tell. But it's Friday afternoon, so let's see what we can do. Let's have some fun with it. Now, my notes. What I tend to do these days, because I make most of my living now running coding workshops, is I investigate things. I write up my notes in the form of course handbooks. So this is the notes from my modern web development, or the current version of my modern web development library. And I got a bunch of stuff in here that I'm going to be referring to as we go along. So this is on, I'll stick a link to this in the comments later. This is available on GitHub, and it's using just the docs, so it's a Jekyll static GitHub site. And this is the thing that I'm interested in, is this Razor class library thing. Now, as you can see, if I blow this up a little bit and zoom in on it, we are going to create a Razor class library project. Now, there's some stuff in here that I found a little bit confusing, because the documentation in .NET says that there's a project type called a Razor class library, which is a package that has pages and views and Razor components in it. And the only way that I could actually get this to work was to I created one, it didn't work. Hacked some project files and hacked some project files and hacked some project files, and eventually, once I basically hacked it until it looked like a Blazor WASM template project, I found that I could host that in a browser. So we're going to create a Blazor WASM template on here. So let me just spin up and open a terminal window, which is going to look like, there we go. Sweet. So I'm 11 Windows terminal. The Windows terminal now, I'm running PowerShell. So there's PowerShell and there's Windows PowerShell. This is PowerShell, so it's cross-platform, so my Mac kind of works the same. I'm running Oh My Posh, which gives you all these nice little crispy icons and things. I'm running a thing called Zoxide, which is like magic statistic. It's not AI. It seems smart, but it's statistical significance and frequency analysis and stuff. That means if I type Z space GH, it's going to go, okay, so if I do Z space GitHub, it's going to figure out, and I happen to know this is GitHub because that little octocat there means I'm in my GitHub folder, pwd, there we go, D projects GitHub. All right, so let's go into, actually today we're just going to be spiking this. So I'm going to go into my throwaway folder here, and let's spin up create a new directory called, actually no, I'll do a .NET new sln -o for output, and let's call this Razor Spike, well, Blazor Spike, Razor Spike, Blazor Spike will do for this. Literally, this is throwaway code. This is take notes on what worked. So Smab says, I do use Razor class libraries. I need to use with a server or client project. Yeah, so the naming around Blazor and Razor and what's what is, I think it eventually makes sense, but it can be a little bit baffling to figure out how all these different bits fit together as you're going along. So let's go into that Blazor Spike. So what I want to create in here is, I want three things. I want a console application, I want a web application, and I want a class library which contains the logic. And so the idea is class library contains the bits which are consistent, and then the console app exposes those via a command line interpreter, and a web application and exposes them through a browser. So I'm going to do a .NET new class lib -o. So we'll call this bit the, let's call this the engine. Engine's a good word. I like engine. And then we're going to do a .NET new, probably .NET new MVC. Actually, what do we get with .NET new web? Am I going to need... Yeah, I'm going to do MVC just so I get the controllers and the Razor view engine built into this thing. .NET new MVC -o web front end. And .NET new console -o. And this thing can be called the... We'll call it the runner. Naming things is hard, yo. And we'll do a .NET SLN add... runner, .NET SLN add engine, .NET SLN add web front end, and plug in a bunch of references. So now this is .NET add, we give it web front end reference to engine, and .NET add runner, .NET rdunner, .NET add runner reference engine. Cool, all right. And .NET build. Oh, that's interesting. You are using a preview version of .NET. Because I got .NET 9 installed, because I've been playing around with doing some stuff on EF Core, which, why MVC and not a Blazor project of some kind, says Smab UK. Because I don't really, I've not built full-on Blazor projects. I guess we could do that. You think it's better off we just make the whole thing? I mean, the proof of concept at the moment is kind of, can I turn the runtime into something that you can package on a website, which could even be a static website? You know, one of the ideas here, is it possible to have an interpreter which is deployed as a component, so you don't need any infrastructure on the back end other than a static file server? But yeah, that's an interesting question. Yeah, okay, we'll play around with one of those as well and see what we get at the other side of it. You're going to be watching me reading a chunk of documentation because I'm doing a bunch of stuff here that I've not done before. All right, let's spin that up. So let's go. Now, yes, do I trust the authors? What do you think? Do we trust the authors? Okay, so we've got the runner contains the program.cs. That's fine. There's the engine. There's the class1.cs. And so I'm just going to say in here, we need something that simulates the act of interpreting and running some kind of code without actually bothering with doing it, because we're not going to do that now. Should we yeah, let's restart Visual Studio Code. Why not? Okay, now just while that's sorting itself out, I am going to downgrade this project to .NET 8 because if things go weird, it's entirely possible that it's because .NET 9 is still, what, 9 months away from actually shipping. So I'm going to need a global.json file, which means I'm going to look up global.json file syntax. Yeah, there we go. Allows you to define what version of the SDK. I want that. So drop in over here, right click that's given me the Solution Explorer review, which is not what I want. Add a new file in here, global.json, paste that in, version 8.0 point whatever. Busy, resource lot retry. Yep. Okay, so I saved that, which has kicked in the .NET runtime, which has led to weirdness. Let's see what I get running that on a command line here. .NET new global JSON. Oh, sweet. Let's try that. So from here, .NET new global JSON --force. Cool. All right, switch back into code. What's it given us? Given us 9.0. Let's drop down at 8.0 point whatever version that is. Now you see this little number 9 here in purple on my window there. If I do a clear on that, that should. There we go. Look at that. It worked. That has dropped down from a number 9 to a number 8. So now if I do a .NET build, yeah, it's kicked in the .NET 8 runtime. It's not using .NET 9 anymore. Yeah, I'm going to start again. You know what? That's what I'm going to do. And actually, I'm going to start again, and I'm going to start with a GitHub repository because it kind of feels weird not being able to push code to GitHub when something actually works. So github-dylanbt, and we'll just spin up a new repo in here, and repositories, and new repo, and we'll call this Rockstar 2.0 spikes. And spikes and experiments for Rockstar 2.0. Public, README, Visual Studio, license file on this. MIT license is probably... I love the idea of licensing a comedy programming language with a license published by the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, that famous hotbed of musical comedy. Boom, that'll do. Cool, all right, I have a repo. Let's do that again. So now I'm gonna go into GitHub. I'm gonna go into dylanbt. I am gonna git clone that. cd Rockstar 2.0 spikes. There we go. And now I need that .NET new global JSON. Sweet, open up VS Code in that folder, lock that down to .NET 8, and then go through the motions of spinning up the project structure so we don't end up with weirdness. And there we go. And let me just, so I'm just tweaking the size of the chat window here. Cool, all right, that'll do. So now .NET -- version should give me 8.0. Cool, all right, so .NET new. Let me just check the docs because, actually, you know what? This is a stream. It's a spike. Never mind the docs. Let's just run the thing and see if it works. So what kind of... I do a .NET new -- list on here. .NET new list is going to give me a list of all the things that .NET knows how to do, which I'm going to make a little smaller so I can see it. And what do we got? All the .NET Aspire, that's all the new stuff that's just shipped. All right, so this is why the question about, you know, why not a Blazor app is Blazor server, Blazor web, Blazor WebAssembly. I am going to need to look up what is the difference between these things, because I've done stuff using the Razor component Blazor runtime. So you build cross-platform code and then you decide later how you want to run it. My question is, so what's the difference between server and standalone? That's what I want to understand. And fortunately, they have people whose job it is to write. So Blazor server versus standalone. So Blazor server versus Blazor. So is Blazor server the thing that runs it on your server and uses WebSockets to stream the differences backwards and forwards? Because I understand the way the hosting models work, but the Blazor server hosting model means I've got a server running code on my end of it, which is something I'm trying to avoid because, like I said, I want all the heavy lifting to happen on your browser, not on my server, because my server costs me money and your browser costs me nothing. So the Blazor server, yeah, so this is the thing that requires the circuits and everything. So Blazor WebAssembly is definitely what I want. Components dependencies on the runtime are downloaded. And yeah, okay, so that all looks like fun. And yep, there's no .NET server-side dependency after the app is downloaded from the server. So at some point, yeah, so Blazor WASM looks like the thing we want for this. All right, so we're going to try spiking So let's create a .NET new class lib -o, so engine. So the engine's going to be the bit that kind of does the, like I said, the interpreting. That doesn't care where it's running. It's going to take something and return something. That's the kind of domain logic, the business engine, if you like. Let me just, yeah, class lib, so .NET new SLN. .NET SLN add engine. Yes, this would all be quicker if I did it in Visual Studio, but then it would not work cross-platform. And I'm a big fan of portability. A Blazor server running in a Docker container. So, yes. Okay, so we got the engine there. I'm going to do a .NET new console -o runner. And then we are going to do .NET add runner reference engine. And we're going to do .NET new Blazor WASM -o. And we'll call this web thing. I got a thing about 8-letter names. I love 8-letter names because I grew up on MS-DOS and Scrabble. And in MS-DOS, you only got 8-character file names. And in Scrabble, 8 letters means you've used all 7 of yours, so you get your 50-point bonus. So yeah, I really like 8-letter words. So we got a web thing, and now I'm going to do a .NET add web thing reference engine. All right, git add dot. Actually, you know what? .NET build. So check we're on .NET 8. That's working. MS build projects to restore. Okay, good. That's only built one thing. .NET SLN add engine. .NET SLN add runner. .NET SLN add web thing. So MS-DOS was 8.3, but it used to really, like I used to see people who had files called like bank_let.ter. So the full file name was bankletter, but that's not what file extensions are for. It used to make me cringe, and thinking back about it is making my skin crawl just a little bit. Anyway, and I remember the first time I ever saw a Solaris Unix machine which didn't have the 8.3 extension. Somebody ran a file called newuser.script, and I was like, .script! Wow, it's got long file extensions. That was a memorable moment. Okay, so we've got .NET build. That worked. All right, git add dot, git commit -m, .NET new, all the things, and git push. All right, let's open up the Visual Studio, real one, and see what we can see. So I got full Visual Studio here with ReSharper plugged into it because I'm going to be doing a bunch of stuff I don't really like. I've not worked with Blazor WebAssembly that much. You know what? Let's run it and see what happens. .NET run web thing. Boom. Could not find a project. .NET run -- project web thing, because you couldn't possibly have figured that out from the previous command line. And spin that up. Let me move a couple of things around just a little bit. There we go. Make that a little bigger. All right, localhost 5144. This is going to be like a to-do list with a weather forecast app in it, isn't it? Yeah, there's a counter. There's the weather. Okay, so this is the template. So this is the standalone Blazor app. Yeah, that looks like fun. Okay, yeah, and it's got about, oh, but that takes you to Microsoft.com. Welcome to your new app. Yeah, actually, this looks like a good approach. I am still curious about how do you turn a Razor component into something that can be independently deployed on a static website, which is not hosted on a .NET backend. But we'll figure that part out later. All right, so what I'm interested in now is Visual Studio is open, and I am going to open a project. No, I don't want anything on that screen. We're going to try opening Visual Studio again. Right. Open. I don't want to open reset. There we go. Open a project or solution. GitHub, Dylan BT, date modified, Rockstar 2.0 spikes, Rockstar 2.0 spikes.sln. There we go. Visual Studio is in the house. What's new? WinForms designer improvements. I love WinForms. I've loved WinForms since I first used it. There is still something liberating about your application being like, no, it looks gray. It looks gray like all the other programs. Right, let's see what we can see. So we got the engine, and I'm literally gonna spike it in here. So let's call this thing is gonna be, can I have a class with the same name as the namespace? I think I probably can. Public class engine, and then on here I'm gonna whack that up because the resolution on my eyes and the resolution on your screen are probably about the same. Right, so all I'm going to do on this is I'm going to say public string run string program. We're going to wait. We're going to wait just a minute while Visual Studio does whatever it thinks it's doing and gets to the point where I can press a key and it just gives me that key back. It's one of the, okay, so public string run string program. And I mean, what are we going to do here? We're going to return. So I need just enough on here that I can see that it actually happened. So I'm going to give back it worked, and I'm going to give back program.length, and I'm going to give back datetime.utcnow.toString, and I'm going to format that as an ISO date. So that can be it worked and ran that many characters at there. Okay. So we've got a method in there that does that. So now the command line runner for this, just to figure out how that's going to work, is, so literally this is going to be var input equals args0, args0, args1. Actually, let's call it var program equals file.read all text. There is no error checking here. It's what Raymond Chen would call a little program. args1 var result. Yep, pull that in. That's cool. New engine.engine, engine.run program, and console.writeLine result. Okay. So this is the command line that should mean if I get a PowerShell window. All right, there we go. One of those. So cd runner echo hello world to example.rock, .NET build. Index outside the bounds of the array, probably because does args0, I can never remember, is args0 the name of the program you ran? All right, that ran 14 characters out there, and let's just spit back the name of the actual program script as well. Return, so we'll drop in there program, and that worked, and .NET run that, and cool, okay. I have no idea why that has put new lines in there. Because there are new lines. Is this PowerShell echo doing something peculiar? Yeah, it is. Yeah. Yeah, okay, cool. Okay. So demo of command line runner, but let's face it, that was very unlikely to go wrong. Let's have a look at the Blazor stuff. So I got a web thing over here, and we've got a layout, we've got a main layout, we've got a nav menu, we've got a div with a class with a nav scrollable with a and let's throw in. Okay, so what do we got? We got app.razor is a okay, so type of app. So this thing compiles to a program that references the assembly that it came from. All right, so program.cs, WebAssembly host builder, add one of those, add one of those, add an HTTP client builder. So this is the thing that actually runs it. Yeah. One of the things, so just Surly's comment about Hello World, one of the things that trips me up often is the things that work in the command, like the CMD prompt, and things that work in Linux shells that are different in PowerShell, like RM minus RF. PowerShell RM exists, but it doesn't know what minus RF is, so yeah. PowerShell, I kind of, yeah. CMD and PowerShell are different, except PowerShell tries very hard to pretend it's CMD, except when it isn't. Baba Ruiva says, hello, I'm a PHP developer from Brazil, and I have a playlist with your songs. They cheer me up while I work. You know, sometimes when I'm having a really bad day, I listen to my own songs, because when you work in software, at some point, everything you ever did in your life is now either a maintenance problem or it's been shut down. But you can make a song and 10, 15 years later, you come back and it's like, yeah, I still kind of like how that sounds. Right, what are we doing here? I want to figure out how to type something into a text box on a web page and have that run through that little engine component, come back out the other side, and work. So, oh, there's conflict in the comments about okay, so let's take a look. What do we got in here? I'm gonna add a new thing. I'm gonna do some I could read the manual, but it's more fun just to hack around on stuff. I've done odd bits of stuff with Blazor before, but not Navlink Classical now. href equals engine, so we'll call that aria hidden equals true. All right, let's run that. And so we can .NET Watch run this thing, can't we? Like, we got the whole hot reload support that is apparently very exciting. .NET run, .NET run, .NET run, .NET run, and .NET run says, yeah, there we go. Let's open that up. And hello world, welcome to your app. And all right, actually what I'm going to do, I'm going to put that on that side, and we'll put VS on that side, and we'll shrink the Solution Explorer down a little bit. Okay, so that's working. And that's working. And if I change things on here, does it hot reload by magic? If I change engine to hello, and I save that, and no. Well, kind of yes, but kind of no. Something flickered in there. Let's do .NET Watch run. Hello, Quadman SWE. Welcome to the stream. Let me just tweak that a little. There we go. All right, now we don't have Blazor running on top of comments. All right, yep. Connecting to the browser is taking longer than expected. Why do we think that might be? Let's switch it off and on again and see what happens. All right, so that says hello, and if I change that back to engine, and I save that, so this is interesting. So the .NET Watch has picked up the file connections, but this connecting to the browser has taken longer than expected. Let's do a little quick look and see what that is doing. Running with .NET Watch prints the error. Connecting to the browser has taken longer than expected. Yes. We scroll right the way down to the end and see if anything has ever Whether this has been closed as a dupe or something. Response compression needs to be disabled. .NET Watch, verified browser opens, yes. Open the browser inspector, right click the refresh icon, empty cache, and hard reload. Let's try that. Right click that. In Chrome, right click the refresh icon. Let's bring up the inspector on that window there. So we'll do a F11 on that. No, right click inspect. Network. Need to have the dev tools open first. Oh. Cool. Today I learned a thing. There we go. All right. So that does something. Sorry, there's nothing at this address. So what are we investigating here? We're seeing whether the legend of hot reload is all that it's gonna. Hot reload changes succeeded. All right, and it's not warning about that stuff anymore anyway. So in theory, now I can jump in over here and I can change engine to be hello, save, boom. Okay, you see that little tick and hello on there, and that popped up straight away. And I can change that back to engine, and all right. This is cool. This is working like it does in the demos, which is probably because it's not doing anything important yet. Okay, so let's see what we can see here. So I've got a pages. I got counter.razor. All right, I've got home.razor. I've got weather.razor. Let's copy and paste counter because that's got a bit of .NET code in it. So right click that. And rename engine.razor. What are we thinking, folks? How long before hot reload falls over? Oh, there we go. An unhandled error has occurred. Reload. Sweet. Look at that. Blank page. What's the command line saying? It's saying an unhandled error has occurred. Right, okay. Inspect, right click, empty cache and hard reload. An unhandled error has occurred. I think I've broken something. Now, this is one of those kind of weird things. Let's have a look at the console here. All right, there we go. So nothing on the .NET compilation thing here. That's saying, yeah, your code is all fine, but then the browser is just saying an unhandled error. But if we look in the console inspector, yeah, it's WebAssembly. So the error's in the console. The following routes are ambiguous. Counter in there. So, okay, so that's cool. So this is just a Razor thing. So this is the page attribute there. All right, but you see there, just pop straight. It's like, oh yeah, no, we're good now. Right, so let's type the engine is here. And what I want to do is I need a text input. So let's have now I'm going to say label 4 equals program, and program is there. And then we'll call this text area ID equals program. Type your program here. There's that, and boom. All right. Okay, I like that. Okay, so now that on click. So this is one of the things I like about the whole, Blazor WebAssembly is kind of the on click here is just like, because it's got the @ on the beginning. That means this is magic. That means this is not your old school JavaScript. This is something different. I'm going to put that down there. So that'll give us a little bit more scope. So on click equals run program. And then down here, that can come out. I'm gonna have a private void run program. Now, I'm gonna go out on a limb because what I need to check here is how do I update the content of that text area? And so current count there, that was bound. If we go and have a look at what we've got in our counter.razor here, So that variable there, I'm guessing, will update dynamically. So we jump back over here. I can stick a run on there. And then underneath that, I can have a text area. Ooh, no, just a text area. So this is the whole thing. You know, I suspect that there is like an HTML on steroids way of doing this, and that there's a idiomatically Razory, Blazory, WebAssembly way of doing this. But we're figuring it out as we go along. So let's say text area, and I'm just gonna say that equals result. So I'm gonna have in here private string result equals. Does that need to be private? Yeah, it's private because this is all in scope. Equals nothing happened yet. Alright, so that comes out. That comes out. Run that from there. And now we drop that down. We save that engine.razor. And refresh that. And that still says click me, which means something hasn't reloaded, which means yes, A for always. Unable to blah, blah, blah because of a rude edit. I'd love to know who coined the expression a rude edit for one of these things. Okay, cool. Nothing happened yet. And again, and again, and again, and again. So that's easy. That's real easy. So what I need to do now is in this component, I want to say private engine. Now, is that going to pick that up? Okay, so question is, you can bind the value or you can just use the input text area component. So if I have a, let's see, what does an input text area component do? Input text area in Blazor, yes. Yep. Okay, let's try that. Because, hey, you can't go wrong just pasting the top voted answer from Stack Overflow, right? So what do we got on here? We can take that out, take that out. There's that. Bind value equals. So I'm going to assume this is bidirectional binding. Yep, input text area. All right, so let's jump that back over there. Okay, cool. So we get error. That didn't work. Didn't like that. That was bad. Program. That is okay. Engine.run program has 0. Ooh. Ah. Hang on. Namespace and be hard, yo. So I've got too many things called engine. So this needs to be an engine. I've got a page called engine referencing a component called engine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename one of these things. I'm going to go into engine.cs, which is in there, and I'm going to rename that to be interpreter. Okay, and then this page here, I'm gonna change that to be let's call this sandbox instead of engine, so we don't have anything called engine that might conflict with stuff. Sandbox, that we'll fix that in a second. So back over into our nav menu.razor. What do we got in here? That can be called sandbox now. That links to sandbox. And engine.razor, rename that to become sandbox.razor. I'm sure that there's a better way of doing this in the grander scheme of things. All right, so we've got sandbox. So now that comes out completely. So what I got now is we are going to create a private interpreter. Interpreter. Just for a second, my brain wanted to abbreviate that to int, and then I realized that that would be a poor abbreviation for that thing. Result equals interpreter.run program. All right, and then interpreter should expose a method called run, which takes string program. All right. This is looking promising. This is looking very promising. Sorry, there's nothing at this address, so go to sandbox. Yep. Type your program here. It worked. Okay, so if I type hello and I run that. Hello, it worked. Ran 5 characters. Run. Sweet. Okay. All right, so far, so good. Let's do the fun part. So Smab says in the comments, I've been known to name the page engine page, but leave the root the same. I've done the same thing in Razor, so Razor pages and those kinds of things a lot, because just having page on the end makes it a bit easier to figure out what's what. And there's the whole convention of, you know, the home controller is the thing that comes up when you go to /home, and you don't put controller in the roots. So yeah, probably... So today is all spiking. Today is banging things together, seeing what happens, and seeing whether this is feasible. All right, we're gonna do a. We're gonna push this to GitHub, and then we're gonna actually build a grammar here. So bail out of that. Git add dot git commit -m. Blazor proof of concept is working. Cool. Git push. So the milestone I want to hit today is being able to run that sandboxy thing without the server having to do anything other than provide static HTML. So what's the runtime scenario for that? How do we get to a point where this thing is compiled down to a component that is just, it downloads and it runs, and the browser, the web server doesn't even need to be ASP.NET. The web server itself can be static, GitHub pages, or, you know, content delivery network or something like that. And I noticed down here, this is still complaining about ASP.NET Core browser refresh stuff. So we're going to have to do a little bit more. But first of all, I just want to push this through and see what happens with the next stage of it. Now, there's a package I'm going to install here. If we go into the engine namespace, there is a package on NuGet called Pegasus. And Pegasus 4.1, a parsing expression grammar is, yeah, see the version list below for details, 4.2.0. So Pegasus parsing expression grammar is, it's the thing that I used to build the original Rockstar interpreter. Whether I stick with a parsing grammar for version 2 or not, I don't know. There's a bit of me kind of wants to nerd snipe myself by building my own parser. And then there's a bit of me that says, no, life is short. Like, why would you do that? Let's plug in Pegasus here and take a look. So parsing expression grammars are lots of fun. And I'm going to .NET add package Pegasus in there. And just refresh my recollection. And so here's an example of a simple parser for mathematical expressions. So we are going to drop, I'm just going to use this like straight off. So this is a, drop that in. What I can't remember is the file name. I think this goes in as a .peg file. Yep. Okay, you'll need to reload your project for the peg grammar build action. Yeah. So Cinziat asks, is your application running purely in the browser right now, or is there some server component? Well, the easiest way to determine that right now is I'm going to go to my, wherever my PowerShell window went, which is there. And if we go into the web thing and we do a .NET run, So at the moment, Visual Studio is providing the web server as well as the runtime. But if I drop that over here, pane that there. Now, if we stop the web server and then type run and type some stuff in here, and hello, and we run that, and we make that bigger and pull that across, and okay. So yeah, once this thing has been deployed now, it is running, so the web server is stopped. The server is no longer running here, and if I refresh the page, I get spin, spin, spin in the Chrome, and then the connection refused. So the question is, this is a bit where I get curious, is what is this actually downloading? And how easily, so this is, if you look at the console web inspector on a Blazor app, you get this thing that says, oh look, .NET, this thing loaded 9 megabytes of resources. We haven't installed WASM tool, so the tree shaking, like let's prune this down to just a little bit that we need, that's not there yet. But this page, if I do a right click on, we're going to do something interesting. Let's try this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to open a new terminal window. He says confidently, and then mashes the function button, like that's going to have any good. Open a new terminal window. Let's bring that across to here. So I'm going to, where are we in here? Let's go into, so if I do Zoxide and I go into our Rockstar, Z-Oxide Rock should find the Rockstar 2.0 spikes. Cool. So the Z there is Zoxide, Z-O-X-I-D-E, which is cool. So yeah, we're gonna publish and release it in a minute, see how small we can get this thing. But if I now go into, so I make a directory called standalone, cd standalone, and now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do wget -m for mirror, and I'm gonna grab http localhost that. And that is okay. In theory, should. What do we got here? Now, I'll be amazed if this works. Absolutely amazed. But let's go into that folder there. So I got an index.html. I've got a favicon. If I do a tree view in that, or a dir/s, which doesn't exist because cmd-dir, this is the whole thing we were just talking about with PowerShell is not the same. dir/s, there we go. So there is nothing here which, so wget isn't smart enough. The blazor.webassembly.js here, what that is doing, I'm guessing, is it's running some client-side code which then initializes the network request, which goes and retrieves the rest of that. So to get this to the point where you can truly deploy a static HTML application which has a WASM interpreter packaged into it, that's going to be a job for another day. But just wgetting the static site is not enough to do it. There is still some bootstrap stuff in here. Actually, let me see what happens. I'm curious. So let's go into, if I open that terminal window here, bounce that across to there, make that usably big, Z back into the Rockstar folder we were just in, cd standalone, cd localhost. So it's well documented how you make it standalone. I suspect that it probably is. But I'm curious to see how this thing blows up. So I have a... there's a tool called an emergency web server. Spark. It's called Spark. There we go. I don't know if you've seen Spark. So Spark is brilliant. Spark is, other than being a dreadfully overloaded name, this is Spark. And Spark is literally a standalone executable that you just run it and it turns your current directory into a website. So I'm going to type Spark there, localhost 8080. So now if I go in a browser to http localhost 8080 and run that, and all right, so you can see that's trying to load, but it's not doing anything. But the thing that it's not doing is we're getting a framework. .NET JS is aborting with a not found. So if I go here to underscore framework / .net.js, all right, you can see what I'm doing here, and it's probably not a best practice, but let's see what we can do. So if I go into DylanBD 2.0 spikes, standalone, localhost underscore framework, save that into there, and now we reload that page, and now where's it blowing up? Now it's going to get as far as... all right, so you can see it's, yeah, there's a sort of an incremental, there's a little bit of JavaScript that loads a bigger bit of JavaScript that loads a bigger bit of JavaScript. So Smab would have tried .NET Publish to start. Let's try .NET Publish. That looks like fun. Where are we? Let's go into web thing here, and we're going to do a .NET Publish. And that's going to, okay, optimizing assemblies for size, that's shiny. I think it says this might take a while, and you're like, how long is a while? And we wait, and we wait, and we wait, and okay, that was a while. Published without optimizations, although it's optional, we strongly recommend. What do you think? Should we follow the recommendation? That looks like a fun recommendation to follow, so let's install that. Whoa! The machine has a pending reboot. Does it? I restarted like last month. All right. That's installing a lot of things I probably won't need, but never mind. I'm sure it'll be fine. So what? Yeah, we don't use Android. We're not using iOS. I mean, Android and iOS, like the idea of there being like a native Rockstar app in the App Store, probably would violate some sort of terms and conditions, because I know Apple have been like very restrictive about anything that has a full-blown interpreter in it, but I wonder whether they would genuinely pick it up on a joke programming language, which is almost impossible to do anything complicated with. Hello and welcome to Installing Things with Dylan. Today we're installing the WASM tools workload for .NET. Whenever I run these kind of streams, I always think that certain tools should have theme music. So this should be like a doom, 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 and like as it gets faster, the music is and then if it breaks, you've got like the sad trombone. But that worked. Ta-da! .wav. Right. .NET Publish. It is a tremendous amount of fun, this phase of a project where you're like, let's try that and just see what happens. And, you know, there's no kind of, this is the part where you're figuring out enough that you feel confident that it would be worth starting to make a plan. This is, you know, spiking and figuring things out. And, oh, wow, look at that massive chunk of code there. That is the most exciting thing I've seen since I compiled FFmpeg from source. It really is. Look at all of those flags. I'm quite excited to see what comes out the other end of this. All right, NetAO publish. Let's open that folder and see what we can see. And there is web thing. And where did it put it? Bin release NetAO publish. Bin release NetAO publish. Oh, this looks exciting. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to see, can I run, if I run the Spark static web server in that folder there, do I get the whole thing running static with no ASP.NET runtime? So cd bin release net80, cd publish spark dot. So now if I go to my localhost 8080, which was in here somewhere, boom. Well, it doesn't know about index.html. Okay. So this is a promising set of error messages. What we've got on there is, I think, so one, I need to actually run Spark inside the www root folder so that relative URL references will resolve correctly. And that's okay. Hard refresh that. Sandbox is there. Type your program here. Ah, look at that. That is excellent. That is truly awesome. And that, if we go in here and have a look at the network tab for this, what I'm expecting and hoping to see is when I reload that. Oh, that's interesting. So when I click on that, that routes to /sandbox and it opens. But then if I hit reload on /sandbox, it says page not found, presumably because this thing here is not actually sending. If I go into the network, yeah, okay. So this is interesting. If we clear that out, and folks who've done a lot of work with Blazor are probably watching it going, how do you not know that already? But when we click on Sandbox here, that doesn't actually send a request. This whole thing is now an application which is using the address bar and the browser's UI kind of as part of what it's doing here. But this is not navigating a web page at all. Other than there, you can see it's making a JSON request to some back-end stuff. But that there is indeed running that thing. Cool. Okay, so last thing I'm curious about, how big is it? Okay, so let's go back to the root there. We'll go into that. We'll do that. We'll right-click the refresh thing, which is empty cache and hard reload. And that's 649 kilobytes. So that entire thing really? 650K, including a compressed, pruned .NET runtime. All right. 640K. Let's do something more interesting with it. Check the console as well. Well, there is no console because I'm not running this in oh, sorry, you meant this console. Okay, let's run that again. And there's Spark note. Break out of that. cdww root. Spark.8080. Reboot that homepage. Check the console. Nothing. Oh, I mean, we've got one little thing here saying. I mean, this is now in that suspiciously good, like, really kind of thing. All right, that's fine. That's just telling me I can't write HTML, but okay, that's all right. Console's there, network's there. Reload that. That's, of course, it can't load Sandbox because it's not a real root. /sandbox is on that. Run that. Yeah. That looks like it's doing exactly what I was hoping it was going to do. All right, so let me grab this lot. We're going to bail out of there. And git add dot and git commit -m. The whole thing sort of works, including static hosting. Cool. So the question, or a later question then, is do I build the whole thing as a Blazor application, or do I build it as a website that has a Blazor component embedded into it somewhere? which kind of boils down to things like search engine optimization-y type stuff, which we can think about at a later stage. Right, what I want to do now is, now you committed your downloaded broken web page. Yeah, that's all right. I might need to look at it later to see why it was broken. This is just spiking. This is literally the GitHub thing at this stage is a snapshot, which I probably don't need to push. But it's a snapshot that just says, oh yeah, take that. And then if you do something that breaks, you can roll back to what it looked like before it broke. So, right, what are we going to do next? I want to build in a Pegasus grammar. So I'm going to go into my Visual Studio. Now, I think I'm going to close and reopen this. Because that will have added to the what did I do? I plugged in engine.csproj, so package reference include equals Pegasus, so that will have added a new project build type. So let's rebuild that solution and see if this works. And I can go there, right click, add a new item. And this is almost certainly not going to give me a parsing expression grammar file. Peg, no, nothing. All right. Code, we can just create, I mean, what I really want here is a text file. And we will call this example.peg. So this, what we're going to do is crib the demonstration grammar for the mathematical parser from Pegasus webpage. We're going to drop that in here. So peg examples.expression parser. Now what we should be able to do with this is copy there, quick up and running. So that one there, there's that. Interpreter is going to wrap a peg examples. Now I do a rebuild solution on that. That's all in the wrong place and is not gonna work. You know what? This is dumb, but might work. Peg examples could not be found. Okay, I'm gonna close and reopen Visual Studio. So in theory, it'll pick up that new project type that was installed with the peg package there. Let me just go over into here and do a .NET clean .NET build on that. Okay, peg examples could not be found. That's interesting. So, install the Pegasus NuGet package in Visual Studio. Let me see if I get something different from doing that. Actually, hang on. What I'm going to do in here is let's go into pegasus.tests. Take a look at the csproj file in here, which is there. And somewhere in here will be the compilation step. This is a complicated project. Let's do it in Visual Studio. So I'm going to go into VS 2022, reopen that. Rockstar 2.0 spikes. Close the what's new. And I am going to go into the package manager. Actually, I can do that from here. Manage NuGet packages for that. So there's a post install step here that I don't think got properly triggered. I'm going to uninstall that and then reinstall that and see what happens. Okay. There we go. Parsing expression grammar 420 alpha 0009. Install that. What I'm looking for here is a change to the csproj file, something which enables that new build type. And so there's that. No change to the CS proj file. Don't save any changes to that. Maybe something. Okay. I've used Pegasus before. It works. The peg grammar build action. Files in your project marked as peg grammar will be compiled to the... Okay, so I need to go in here, right-click that, properties, and on the properties window... yes. There we go, peg grammar. All right, boom. So now when I dock that back to there, rebuild that. Oh, hello, Kepper104. First time catching a live stream. I don't normally do them very often. I'm trying to do more. Because it's fun. And it's nice having folks in the chat pointing out things I could try. But yeah, I haven't streamed very much for a while now. But I'm trying to do a lot more of that. I have a lot less travel coming up the next few months. Second half of last year, I was basically all over the place doing conferences and workshops back to back to back to back to back. And when you get back from that, the last thing you want to do is fire up a camera and talk to people some more. All right, let's take a look and see what we can see. But yeah, by the way, today is the last day to get early bird tickets for NDC Oslo, which is in Norway in June. And I'm doing a workshop all about web development in .NET, so talking about minimal APIs and Razor and EF Core and SQLite and WebAssembly and Mailjet markup language. Basically how to build a proper, web stack that'll do pretty much everything you want. And you don't have to install Node.js. There's no Node involved. You don't even have a Node modules folder, not even on your machine, which I quite like. Okay, so we've got, that's pulled that in, that's pulled that in. That's kind of cool. So what we're going to do now is that parser.parse will give us back a result. So let me just take a quick look at our example grammar here. Now, the parsing expression grammar is I'm going to install the Visual Studio extension for this thing. So extensions, manage extensions, Visual Studio Marketplace, Pegasus. What do you mean nothing found? Peg, nothing, no, what? Come on. Peg, search. I know it exists because I literally just saw the thing saying you can have that. Right. Pegasus, the Visual Studio Marketplace. There it is. Look at that. Why it didn't find it in the search, I have no idea. Desktop, yeah, grab that. Install that. Reason being it should give us syntax highlighting on peg files. Except it doesn't support Visual Studio 2022. That's why. I wonder if there is. It doesn't matter. We can build this thing by hand. I mean, there's a last updated 2018. There is, if you look at the status of the code on here, there is a develop branch on this, which has had commits as recently as 3 months ago. So it looks like there is active development going on the Pegasus, new version of Pegasus 4.0. And it still works. And, there's always the option of pulling the thing down and rebuilding it, or building a tokenizing parser instead of using an expression grammar. Yes, this is me simultaneously going, it hasn't been updated since 2018, while working on an update to a project that I last touched in 2018. So it's the beautiful asymmetry of open source. Everyone else should do this properly, but of course not me, because I'm special. Anyway, so this is in and kind of works. And so what I want to look at now is I should be able to... there's the interpreter string program. So this is going to do parser.parse program and console.writeline. So I should be able to return result from that. Okay, so, and what is result here? Is return result.toString. Okay, so the expression grammar here, the parse method in it is actually going to return number, because specify string culture. Yeah, toString culture info dot invariant culture, because why not? Okay, so that's gonna run that. That's cool. There we go. So now if we run that from the command line, so if I cd enter runner, let's just edit our example dot, where did it go? You know, I'm gonna put that back up there so we can actually see what's going on with it. So in my runner, I had an example.rock. So 1 plus 2 divided by 3 times 5 plus 4. So there we go. There's an example program. Now, if I do a .NET run example.rock in here, we should get an expression. 8.33333, okay, which, yeah, yep, all right, I can believe that. So now we want to see the same. Now I should just be able to rebuild and rerun the whole thing. So actually, YOLO, we're just going to go into web thing and we're going to do a .NET publish again, and then we're going to reload that static site version and see if that worked. Okay, linking, bang, pruning, and trimming, and all the things. And now it's going to be interesting to see if pulling in the Pegasus package here has made a significant difference to the result of this whole output process. That says strip dwarf, right? You all see that? Yeah. That's going to come up in a log file somewhere, and somebody's going to be like, "What? Why was strip dwarf on your stream?" I'm like, "You don't understand, and I don't understand either. It just probably seemed like a good name for something." Okay, so we've got a publish in there. So now I can go cd bin, cd release, cd net 8, cd publish, and we can spark in that folder. No, I need the www root folder. And spark dot, and that's going to open that, and that means now I can point a browser at localhost on port 8080, which is there. All right, and there's the sandbox, and if I type 1 plus 2 and run it, 3, and if I type 1 plus 2 divided by 4 plus 5 times 6 and run that, we have look at that, we have a parsing grammar that actually works for expressions and is running completely standalone. And if I take a look at network and do a hard reload on that, of course it doesn't work because /sandbox isn't a real web page. And network on there, and what's the total size of the download there? What? Interesting. Yeah. That is seriously, right-click that, empty cache and hard reload. 649K. That is so good, I'm like, I only 80% believe it. I'm wondering if there's some statistic here that we're missing. But given it's a very, very simplistic thing, because Pegasus happens at build time. So the output of that Pegasus thing. So we've got this expression grammar file here. And the grammar is saying, all right, well, an addition is an addition plus or an addition minus, and a multiplication is a power, and a power is a primary, and all that kind of thing. But if we go digging into the actual project code we got in here, and we go into obj and release net 8.0, somewhere in one of these, there is example.peg. So this generates a bunch of C# code which handles the interpreter, the parsing operation for us. And this, I don't think, has any external dependencies, because it literally translates the grammar into vanilla C# code, which knows how to interpret the grammar that we gave it. All right. Last thing we're going to do on the stream today is I want to see about ahead of time compilation for .NET console apps. So AOT tree shake .NET console. Let's see what Google gives us for that. Publishing your app as native AOT produces an app that's self-contained, smaller footprint. Yes, that's nice. We like it. Native AOT is targeted console type apps. This is fine. I am interested in a console type app. Add publish AOT true to your project file. All right, copy that. We're going to jump into here. We're going to go into runner.csproj. I'm going to... Does that need its own property group? Is it that important? Do we think? Do we care? All right. I read the bit for .NET 7. Did I? No, I think it's the same. I think. That bit there is .NET 7, .NET 8, but I think that's just this little accordion control here. It's just giving you a different disclaimer. .NET publish -R publishes the app for Windows as a native AOT application on a machine with the required prerequisites installed. All right, let's see what this does. You all excited? I'm excited. We don't want web thing. We want the runner. And we want .NET publish -R Win64 -C release. All right. What are we expecting? Big old error message? No. Ooh. All right. Bin. Release. .NET 8.0. Win64. Publish. Runner.exe is a 1.5 megabyte executable. Now then. Question is... Now, I have no idea if this is even a sensible thing to attempt. But if I can build a Linux ARM64 version of that, let's try that. Yep. I don't even know if .NET does cross-compilation, if I can build a Linux executable on a Windows machine. But we're going to try. Dim, 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 dim. Boom. Cross-OS native compilation is not supported. But that's all right. Because this is the year of Linux on the desktop. And there it is. Linux on the desktop. So where am I? I am here. I want to go into cd/. CD projects. So this is now WSL. So this is an Ubuntu Linux host. Now I don't know. Do I have a .NET 8 minus .NET runtime? I've got .NET 8 installed on here. So we're going to go into GitHub. We're going to go into Dylan Beatty. We're going to go into Rockstar 2.0 spikes. We're going to type dir because we forgot we're on Linux, and it's going to work because Linux is clever. We're going to go into runner, and I am going to paste that. What am I going to do? I'm going to right click because that's how you paste in Linux. Interesting. So running .NET Publish in there has just brought up some weirdness in which is probably all right. You can run on WSL straight from VS. So does that mean you can use Visual Studio to run the .NET compiler on the Linux subsystem? So you can use Visual Studio to create native Linux executables? I guess we'll find out. The good news is I have a Windows, a Mac, and a Linux here. The interesting news is, how do you do a continuous, like a GitHub Actions build for Mac OS? Interesting. Now, this might be a problem because example.peg could not be opened. Now, I wonder if I do an ls in there, cd engine ls. What does it mean example.peg could not be opened? There may be some headaches here because I've got a... how does WSL work? Is it a VM or is it more clever than that? It is a... yes and yes. Fundamentally, it's a Linux kernel running inside a virtualized process on Windows, but then it's got some very, very tight integration with various bits of Windows desktop tooling. And I think in version 2.0, I've not played with this, but WSL has like an X-Windows host now, so you can actually boot Linux GUI applications and just run them side by side with Windows, which is kind of neat. Have you got the case of the files correct? Windows will forgive. Now, yeah, this is exactly what I was thinking, is do I have a... example.peg could not be opened. So if I cat example.peg from there, so that does work. Example.peg exists. Do I have the, if I look in my csproj file, peg grammar include equals example.peg. That's correct. That's correct. That all looks correct. Example.peg is, interestingly, according to this, is no longer part of the solution. Include that in the project. Build action set to peg grammar. Peg grammar has disappeared. So something has, interesting. So something I did there when I opened and tried to build the solution on WSL has clobbered the Pegasus grammar file, or the peg grammar file, removed it from the project, and it's claiming it no longer exists on disk, which is a little unusual and could be a case-sensitive file system issue, or could be something to do with... Alright, that worked. Now let's try a .NET build. Maybe it was just a weird glitch or I didn't have a file thing set. See that? So in the background, that popped up with a bunch of errors. Oh, but then they went away. But... how cute. The resolve package assets task failed unexpectedly. Yeah. So, unable to find fallback package folder, C program files x86. Right, so what we're going to do here is, do I have the WSL option in Visual Studio as a target? I don't know, and I'm not sure where I would look to check that. But what I'm going to do, instead of trying to build the Windows file system from the Linux ETH bit, I'm going to drop back over onto here. I'm going to do a .NET build and make sure that this works on the Windows. All right, so that's now complaining and saying things couldn't be found. And example.peg is still there. And I'm going to do a .NET clean and .NET build. Then I'm going to push the code to GitHub and I'm going to pull it into a native file system folder on Ubuntu there. I think the cross compilation here is probably the thing that's causing the grief with it. So git add all the things, git commit -m, working AOT command line app on Windows. Git push that. Okay, and then back into WSL, which is there. CD into a... Whoa! Did that just work? Okay, so I accidentally just ran Linux instead of Windows. I just built that in the WSL console window, which you got to admit looks pretty similar to the PowerShell window at a passing glance. Let's see if it worked. So where am I? I need to go back to cd/mount/d/project/github/dylanbt cd Rockstar 2.0 spikes. And I was in runner, and then somewhere in the history for that we had that one there. Can I do bang 1079? Do I remember that from... Yes, I do. From Linux school. All right, interesting. GCC error. I guess the native compiler's using GCC. Let's try a .NET run first. That's a good idea. Yeah. .NET run. See what do we get. It works. Hang on. I do not have an ARM64 processor in front of me. I mean, I have one over there, but it's got macOS on it. LD returned exit status 1. User bin LD BFD cannot find LZ. Okay, so obviously what happened here is LD couldn't find BFD, which couldn't find LZ, and I have absolutely no idea. I know LD is like the GCC linker or something. It's or there was a tool with that name. Let's try a .NET. I'm going to put that error message into Google and see what we get at the other side. And this, I suspect, might be where publish native on Ubuntu doesn't work with Linux. Boom. There we go. All right. Okay. This is probably just something interesting that does not exist on my Ubuntu Linux installation. What is .NET Cross? Anyway. You know what? This has already delivered more than I was... well, everything I was hoping to get out of this session. So the Blazor proof of concept thing, yep. We can build a parsing expression grammar into a class library, which we can run from a standalone Blazor application, and which can be linked into a console tool. So this kind of like all the little technical prerequisite boxes now to do a C# port of whatever Rockstar ends up being in 2.0, and native command line, so you can just apt-get install Rockstar, and a version that runs on the web using WebAssembly. So yeah, tick, tick, tick. All the boxes are done. Now I'm going to need to make a plan. So Josh White says, I think -LZ is it can't find a library called Z. or minus LZ as it can't find a library called Z, depending what side of the Atlantic. Next step, just put in a Razor class lib. So what's the difference between a class lib and a Razor class lib? What does a Razor class lib give me that a regular class lib doesn't, given one of them is going to be on the console and the other one's going to be running in WebAssembly? But I think that's probably a question for a future stream. Cool. I'm going to call that a successful, what is it, hour and 30 minutes of hacking. Razor class lib has some plumbing already built in. Let's have a look, actually. Just before we knock off for today, a .NET, a new, no, I'm going to come out of Ubuntu. Thank you, Ubuntu. We're going to go back into PowerShell on Windows. We're just going to do a .NET new Razor class lib -o Razor lib. I'm just curious. I want to have a look at what do we get out of the box with that. Open up VS Code in that window, and so Razor lib. We've got a we've got a Razor component. We've got a JavaScript interop with a .NET class. Yeah, we got that, and then we got a www root on here. Oh, cool. All right. So yeah, this just looks like it's a Razor. This is what a Razor library that you can deploy as part of a regular standalone application. So there's going to be some investigation to figure out the best way to wire together all these bits. But what today has proved is that it's not impossible. It's the approach I'm thinking is going to work here will actually work. So yeah, tune in next time. Maybe we make this a regular Friday afternoon thing. I don't know. But thanks for tuning in, folks. I'll see you around. Take it easy.